You know, I was thinking about if you want to be blessed, dun, 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 pay your tithes and your offerings. If you want more, give unto the poor. That's partially true, but hey, I don't know why that's.
You
I
just
know.
were
I
feeling
don't
that in
know.
your tanana, huh?
Listen, I don't know why that song was on me, but oh my gosh, we are back. We are back with the next another episode of Relationship Topia. All things relationship, of course, relationship with God, the Creator, supreme being, Most High God. Relationship with yourself, very, very, very important, and relationship with others. So we talk about all things relationship and really how to maximize those relationships, how to add value to those relationships, how those relationships serve you, and how those relationships can help you to navigate through the complexities of life a little easier, right, Jill? Just a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always say, like, I think we have this misnomer because we're growing up, because we're getting bigger. We grew up physically, and a lot of times we even grew up mentally. But what I've seen is there's usually a delay, or the last areas for us to grow is in that emotional and social department. And there's very little education and training around it. And matter of fact, I heard statistics secondhand that said that less than 98% of the population know how to communicate effectively. Only 2% really knows how to communicate effectively. So we see
Wow,
there's some gaps in our social motor skills more
that's
than we think.
crazy. I utilized that same statistics in another scenario last night. I didn't even know the statistics, but I just gave like an overall what I thought based on my personal observation of a certain scenario my husband and I were talking about. And I said exactly that. I said, if something were to happen, 98% of this population of people are not prepared to deal with that. And he wholeheartedly agreed, although we didn't have any data or anything around us. So it's just, interesting that you utilize that on this morning. And that is the actual statistic for another scenario. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I think we're less equipped than we care to admit.
yeah,
And I think just being able to talk, just being able to think, we think that that equals effectiveness in the earth, and it's not, because it's really about having a greater understanding, being sensitive to other people's feelings and emotions, having a caring compassion. There's so many things that I
yeah.
that I think we gotten away with bypassing, and social media isn't making it any better. Which gets us to the topic of what we're talking about. You're not immune with your children today, because oh my God, they I don't want to say they're at a disadvantage, but it's different out here in these internet streets, these social media streets, these social streets.
You see my shirt, right?
Right. Okay. Listen. My appointment's right after yours. Listen.
Life is lifing, right? We were talking about immunity, not being bothered or certain things cannot impact you. I feel that sometimes we do think that we are, though, right? Because when we get to a certain place and we've grown, we've developed, we've learned, skills and things of that nature. We've acquired information and a knowledge, and we've been able to apply, which is wisdom, that information and knowledge. We do feel that certain areas of our life are immune, and certain people are immune as well. So, when we talk about children, of course, there are different categories, right? You have your small children, you have your, toddlers, you have your young adults, you have your adult children. So there's a broad span of that. Of that dynamic across the board. And I feel that I've often said this. I feel like when the children are smaller, you do have a better way to better you can influence. I feel like your influence is
Absolutely.
I'm better in that area, or
More
in that
effective.
time frame, yeah, when they're smaller versus when they're older. And we have to realize that, as we grow with our children, that we are taking on different roles and responsibilities, from being a parent or a director or authoritative figure to mentor, coach, and things of that nature. So I'm saying that to say that because we have raised, our children in a certain way, I feel like sometimes, or we're trying to, even if they're smaller, I feel at times that they are immune to certain things, and certain things will not, as the Bible say, come nigh their dwelling.
Hmm.
But we have seen that that is absolutely not the case. So, the conversation is like, how do you be prepared either way? How do you learn to shift and navigate around the unwelcome circumstances, the unwarranted circumstances, and things of that nature, without falling into I shoulda, coulda, woulda, guilt tripping, feeling that you did something wrong, and just continuing trying to backpedal, and reviewing all your decisions that you made over the course of your life because of XYZ, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And one thing I was saying, we was having actually a fireside chat last night, and one of the things that I brought up was the statistic around the fact that the Z generation, I think is true across races, but I definitely know it's true for blacks, but I think it's across all races, that the Z generation is predicted to do worse from an economic and a financial standpoint than their parents. And this is the first time this has happened in the history. And I tie one of those things to parenting. However, my husband was like, well, I think it's misdirected to limit it to just parental influence. And I was just thinking about that, and just like in this moment, I still don't have a comprehensive list. Well, we always know peer pressure is always there. That's always been there. I think it's even more prevalent now because these peers have access to the internet, which people are one click away from. They've always been this thing, whether you're dealing with I gotta want to watch what I say on online, but whether you're talking about certain explicit type of material, now is even offered at a whole nother
Easier.
level.
Yeah.
It's easier, it's offered at a whole nother level, it's more technologically advanced.
Hmm.
It's experiences that we probably could never think or imagine. So you got that, you got social media, you got the internet, just all this information. Obviously the parents influence, which I believe parenting have gotten softer or
Hmm.
gentler, which is not necessarily bad, but we've lost a little bit of that accountability and responsibility. I had the opportunity over the last 2 days, 3 days, to talk to two people in a brief setting. Both of them are 6 years or older. Both of them grew up in the South. And one of the key things they were sharing about them growing up is that them having such an essential role and responsibility in the operations of the house each and every day.
Hmm.
And that's not, I don't know if we see that today. Like they both talked about raising the food that they ate and being instrumental
Mm.
in preparing that food or gathering that food or cooking that food. And I just feel like we gotta maybe let our kids a little off the hook. And then last thing I'm gonna say, and we can continue to develop this conversation. We obviously know so many spiritual influences and generational curses are real. I don't like to claim them. I'm constantly praying against them. I've already cast them out, all the things, bind them out. But even with that being said, that doesn't mean it happens in a moment instincts. So I could have prayed. I've been praying about this probably for the last decade, almost 9 years. But that don't mean that just because I prayed 9 years ago that all generational curses across every one of my nieces, nephew, me, my spouse, all these things are going to be banished in a day. This may take time for that to be uprooted. And maybe even to be, because some of the things I don't even know to pray for because it hasn't even shown up yet. So when we can't take these things lightly, and also, oh God, let's just talk about our history. So I just listed about 6 or 7 different influences that's impacting our children, that's making them more receptive now more than ever to face trials, tribulations, and different things. And they have to be equipped, and we have to be equipped. And so,
Yeah.
how you do that, dear?
Yeah, and to add on to that, and not even for them just to face trials and tribulation, but I feel that the village, one key element of why a lot of things are happening, is because the village has been lost, or the village looks different now than it did before. You were saying that you spoke to those two individuals, and they were just sharing, responsibility, and they were sharing how they had a hands-on approach probably to growing up. I feel that a lot of parents, including myself, made it a little easier, or tried to make it a little easier for our children for various reasons, right? There's no right or wrong reason why that was the case. However, comma, as you often say, and in some many instances, that was a slight disadvantage to them. While it may have seemed like an easier thing to do at the time, and it was less stressful mentally and emotionally. I often tease my son, you know this too, Jill. When G was growing up, he just often just moves so slow, and still today he takes his time with everything, and being a single mom, having to get to work and having to drop them off before school. I just did certain things. Or let me just go ahead and iron the shirt. Let me just go ahead and get his breakfast or whatever. Not thinking, as a young mom, maybe I just need to carve out more time, get him up a little earlier. I did attempt to teach principles of getting ready the night before. Some of that, went well, and some of that did not. But not to rehash that. But I'm just saying, I feel that things were done for them in some cases, which then caused them to not be as attuned, as adaptable, and as responsible in some areas. I can see a vast difference between myself and even my niece, and of course, a even more vast difference, which is one generation down, right? But even a more vast difference between myself and my son, as far as how we do things, how we look at life, how we get prepared, and just different things. And when I look at our upbringing, I don't necessarily, I wasn't really responsible growing up. To be very honest with you, our mom, I would say
Did
both of us,
everything.
especially in the house mom did a lot of things for us. But at some point along the journey of life, I had, just speak for myself, an aha moment, and I began to just do things a little differently. I don't know what triggered it. I don't know what inspired. Honestly, I don't know what inspired it or whatever. Maybe it was results I received, and my brain automatically clicked to, okay, I like how that felt. Let's do that again. Maybe that was it. I don't know. So I feel that even with that, and even as we're seeing, our children go down different paths, maybe paths that we don't like, we don't agree with, we feel, they shouldn't have to go down. I believe that everybody has their own journey and own path, and we just saw that just recently through a family chat. I am in, and I'm becoming more of the person of not. While I think things are great ideas, and I think things are, if you do it this way, or if you do this, your life will be better. And while I probably can find statistics on why that is true, I'm just learning to allow people to walk their own path, and then offer support when warranted, and trying not to offer unsolicited support and advice, because I've seen, just based on my personal experience, that more than likely does not go over well. So when we talk about immunity, even when we see certain things happening in the lives of our children, and things of that nature, we sometimes have to sit back with pain. Sometimes we have to sit back with tears. We have to sit back with lack of understanding to allow them to walk their own path. And when they're ready, if you would, or ready to just get out of that place wherever they may be in, we can then offer our help and our support that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's good. And when you was thinking that, it's like, yeah, it's kind of force feeding, and that whole, we can do a whole episode about it. And I said I was going to say in an email about the unsolicited advice, because especially folks like ourselves who have the gift of knowledge, have the gift of wisdom, and listen, let's have the gift of life and lessons learned, oftentimes are tempted or have the propensity to want to spread and share what we learn to others. And that's usually happens when people learn new information or come across a revelation. However, we got to realize that we came across that oftentimes in our own, whether it was failure, triumph, or whatever. And we got to allow people to receive that on their own will, because that's part of what God has allowed people to have, this will. And like you said, it just go over so much better. And as you were saying that, um, going back to what you said earlier about us equipping kids at younger age, I really feel like, and this may sound, I don't want to scare parents, because I feel like we still have, and I'm not, as some of you guys know, I'm not necessarily a biological parent, but I do consider myself a parent because I have so many nieces and nephews. My husband and I had an opportunity to raise our nephew for about 3 years, which is still, I get it, it's still not the same of being parenting. I've always been heavily involved in the youth. And the truth be told, I was a youth too at one time. So
You have
that's
a little bit
like,
experience.
say again.
You have a little bit experience, right?
I got a little bit of experience. It's not the same of raising a
Yeah.
child from zero to indefinitely, because there's never an age ending for parenting. But
I'm
going back
still
to what
being parented. I'm just saying.
yeah, like it's a never ending journey.
Yeah.
But it is true though that your influence on your children is the greatest really before they get to puberty, really before they get to like that middle school. So from the time they're born up until like fifth, sixth grade, we want to go ahead and solidify their foundation. And I know a lot of people in our community have adult children. Some people in our community, our core audience, have grandchildren. So
Hmm.
I get that. I don't want you to get discouraged, but we've got to speak to those who still have kids in that age. and even beyond that, we still get to do it. And I'm gonna share a little bit about that, because one of the things I wrote down of how, because we're asking the question, how do we help equip ourselves and our kids to deal with life battles and struggles and challenges when they come, because it's not if they are going to come, it's about when they come. And one thing I wrote down is making sure they have a spiritual foundation. And I said, you got to slide it in and you got to design it in. And it's
Hmm.
not necessarily an innate thing for us to do, even if we're super Christian, even if we're a super believer, it's not that automatic. One of the things that I ended up doing with when my nephew was here, when our nephew was here, is we started reading the Bible every night. And it was a children's Bible, and I would have him do it. And it was like a double, it was 2 for 1, because not only was he able to develop in his reading skills, he was also able to understand God. And now he was with us from 3rd grade to 5th grade. Now he's an 8th grader. And I've been thinking, like, as the time of this recording, maybe a few minutes before, and even before that, because when I saw him this summer, I gave him a Bible, but I have not followed up with him since I gave him said Bible. So I'm thinking, okay, Jill, either you need to start giving him a devotion every day and talking to him almost every day about either devotion and or the chapter of scripture that you want him to read, if you want him to continue to have a foundation. Because even though I did that from 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade, I don't know if he's still been getting that. 7th grade, I don't know if he's still been getting that. And now he is in 8th grade, which is probably one of the most difficult grades in life, because this is where the peer pressure is the heaviest and people are most receptive. Now I'm like, did I really solidify that spiritual foundation? And also sliding it in is in conversations when they're coming to you and you're talking, you can make reference biblical scriptures, quotes, and guide them back to God when they're having issues, and even through demonstration through our life, as we go through trials and tribulations, as we
Hmm.
navigate our day, we're showing through demonstration that we have a life that's dependent on God, because the God I serve says, unless
Come
you
on.
build your house on God, those who labor in vain. And I don't just believe this to be a religion. Come on, come on. I don't
Come
even want to preach
on.
to y'all today, and I ain't here to preach, but what I do know is that Christianity is not a religion. It's not a religion. It's even more than a relationship, although a relationship is essential to have it. It
Hmm.
is about a lifestyle, and it's one that we get to demonstrate. And these spiritual principles work. No more books have, there's no book greater than the Bible that has more truth, that has more books that's been published and credited than the Bible. Like, it is the source of
Yeah.
the earth and the world that people are using to, to hopefully spread more truth, sometimes other undermining and things like this as well. That's out there too. But my whole point is, we have to be intentional about helping our kids have this spiritual foundation, because now, and I'm gonna shut up after this, drill. Now more than ever, I know I heard, I think it was it Jermaine Dupri? Jermaine Dupri and Kirk Franklin both talking about how now our kids are so detached, not only from church, but from their spirituality. And there's so much new influences. Everybody's trying to find a way to be successful, and they don't care if it's with God or not. And they're getting lost. And we have to find a way to still make God relevant with so many competing ideologies and information today.
Amen. And listen, I feel like I was in church.
I was
But
trying not to take us to
listen,
church
it's
today.
it's okay. It's okay, right? So,
Mhm.
and absolutely. And I feel like and as we're wrapping up here, because we are working on, giving you bite-sized information and power pack information in a smaller chunks of time. I feel that the way we can do that, Jill, is basically being the representative and continuing to be the influence to our children, even as they grow and evolve as adults. The Bible said, let your light shine that men may see your good works and glorify God in heaven. And we may not have always done a good job of that, in the past. And we've made, a lot of mistakes and did things, a little differently given the circumstance at the time. But I feel that even though all of that is true, they have influences, social media, child rearing did not always go in the way that we desired it to go. Sometimes we were conflicted in things that we were doing and didn't necessarily make the best decision at that time. I still believe that we have a great opportunity, even now as we're growing and learning and evolving, to be an influence and to be a representative of Christ, be a representative of what we want our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren to represent. And I strongly believe in the scripture in Proverbs 22:6, where it says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. And I believe that we Jill and I can be a testament of this, because we've been able to see, even in the lives of our own children, nieces and nephews and things of that nature, them coming along, if you would. It is not massive. And I feel at times we look for massive change, and things to change right away. Like you were saying, Jill, it may take time. Sometimes we don't know what we're dealing with. Sometimes we don't know what we're up against, because we're dealing with someone else's will. We're dealing with the will of generational things. We're dealing with things that have not been revealed and things of that nature. So it takes prayer, it takes knowledge, it takes understanding, it takes wisdom, it takes conversations, it takes therapy, it takes so many different aspects. And I believe that we work all of those things and be patient, as we work through the change, and we work through the transitions in life, even with our children and grandchildren. We will see the end result. And I believe that as parents and as grandparents, great grandparents, we have to stay the course, and we cannot be discouraged, and we cannot be dismayed. We cannot be divided or divisive in what we believe, in our path and course to life. And I believe when we do all of that, we will see that they will, come out on the other side of whatever it is, and we will see and experience the victory in their lives. So that is what I believe. So I do want to give others hope. Like you say, you didn't want to, discourage parents or grandparents and things of that nature. I just feel that on the encouragement end, while things may seem uncertain at this given time, continue to do what you're doing and do it well, and try not to deviate from what is working, although you're not seeing massive changes and shifts immediately. Oh, you're muted.
I'm going to summarize our talking points, but before I say that, I want to say we may have to incentivize them too, and ask them, especially if you're dealing with an older child. It's definitely important to ask them. So maybe I'm thinking about the Proverbs 31 book that we wrote. Really,
Mm,
you wrote. I published, I guess you could say. But it's an amazing book, and it's an amazing book for children and boys, especially because it's one that was designed. Proverbs was written for men.
it was.
Proverbs were written for men. Like, women just took it over because that's what we do. We know how to, what I'm saying. We know how to abstract things, and utilize it, whether it was intended for us or not. And I say that because that would be a great opportunity to say, hey, son, daughter, how about you go this 31-day challenge with me? And we just shared this. Maybe you can say, okay, if you do this challenge, if you finish the challenge, I'll give you $100. If you finish the challenge, you may have to incentivize them, because they are not going to necessarily just be like, yeah, I ain't got nothing else to do, let me do it. You may can just ask them. You may need to incentivize them to motivate them to want to do it. And sometimes I do it, and I don't never. Sometimes I may not have it to spare. I may offer to give them a book or give them a cash prize. And I'm even planning a big cash prize that none of them know about right now, just to incentivize them. I'm like, I don't want to spend that money. I got so many other things I can spend that money on, like vacation. But I'm like, if it's going to help my nieces and nephew get more focus, then it is worth the sacrifice. Whether that's $50, $500, or maybe even $5,000 if you got it, to make these type of incentives to motivate them to be better, to motivate them to get focused, because they need some motivation. Some of these kids need
Yeah.
motivation, right? They don't want to just be doing it just to be doing it. So with that being said, I
What's
want
in
to
it for
just
them?
right, absolutely. My fourth and last thing, and I'm gonna recap. I'm trying to do my best to recap what we said, is allow them to solve their own problems. Okay, mama, what they call it, helicopter mom. We gotta stop. We gotta stop being a helicopter mom. We gotta allow our kids to do things. Whether if your child need a job, stop. Don't go apply for it. If they need to go to college, don't you apply for it. You can set up a time where y'all can do it together, where you can support them. But we gotta get our hands off and stop doing things and solving problems, because we're handicapping them in that way.
Yeah.
Let me just Did you want to say something else, Tro?
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I'm just
Okay. So
agreeing.
recapping what we said, and I'm probably gonna miss some things, but what I got here is just kind of, I love to give you guys points. So we didn't really have written out points. We're trying to do a lot of freestyle, just have this more conversational. But I know we're teachers at heart, so we like to give points so you guys can have something to walk away with. One, we talk about the importance of giving them a spiritual foundation. You can slide it in and design it in. We want you to do both. Trail said, be the example, be that representation of Christ. They should see it through your actions. And that's one of the challenges, because of the lack of role model, because of the lack of father, which leads us to the third point that Trail said, which was, it's so important to get the kids in therapy, and individual and family. I don't care if your kids say they don't want it. I don't care if your kids say they don't want it. It is important that you get them in therapy. If they did not grow up in a two-parent home, and even if they did, because we grew up in a two-parent home, and we still need therapy. Come on, somebody. Right? My parents was together until my dad passed away. but we still need therapy. And it's really crucial for Black people at large because we come from so much trauma that's still infiltrated and falling out in our family, that we cannot ignore our mental and emotional health. And we need to talk through things about what we've been through and how it impacts us. Lastly, but not least, I said, let our kids solve their own problems. Mom, helicopter mom, we need to put up our cape, our coat, and we need to sit back and allow our kids to fail. Allow them to fail. It is okay. They need to learn that lesson so they can learn this level of resilience. So that is absolutely our time. I don't know if I have any closing words, but we'll be on for more. We got one more thing. We're going to do one more series perhaps on You're Not Immune. But we just pray that this bless you and that you're able to move forward in a way that's going to just empower your family and help equip your children when trials and tribulations strike.
Amen. That's all. That's it. That's all, you all. So, on the next episode of Relationship Topia, Jill and I will be back here and discussing another part about immunity. Until then, be blessed.
Be blessed. Have a great day.